Hi there. I thought I'd just take you through, if you have a few minutes, the key data for UK aggregate demand. You'll know the formula, no doubt, if you're a year 12 or year 13 student, but what does the data show for the UK economy? Let's take a look. Aggregate demand is total planned spending on goods and services produced within the economy. So in other words, it's GDP. The formula for aggregate demand is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. C plus I plus G is domestic spending on goods and services. And of course, X minus M, the value of exports minus the value of imports, is net trade, or the trade balance in goods and services. Now let's take 2019 as a little base here. This was the last year, obviously the last full year before the pandemic. And at current prices, GDP in the UK was just 2.2 trillion pounds. Big economy. You can see that well over half of that is consumer spending on goods and services, 1.4 trillion pounds. Government spending and gross investment spending pretty similar. Exports bigger than G, bigger than I, but can you see there that imports were higher than exports? So net exports, X minus M, was negative. And when you run a trade deficit, that means it's a drag on aggregate demand. There's a net outflow of money from the circular flow. Now, lots has happened since. In 2020, what I'm showing you here are the percentage changes in real terms. You can tell that because it says percentage change at constant 2019 prices. GDP fell by 11% in 2020 in the UK. We lost nearly a tenth of our national output. Consumer spending fell by even more. Gross investment spending down, exports down, imports fell sharply. Of course, many people couldn't travel overseas and they held back on spending. There was a big fall in trade. The key thing is the UK economy shrank, obviously, during 2020, in large part because of the pandemic, but rebounded quite strongly in 2021. Real GDP growth, 7.5%. Consumer spending came back. Notice there that sizable government spending, including extra spending on benefits and healthcare and all that kind of stuff, adding significantly to aggregate demand. Investment, recovering, but not dramatically so. Exports fairly flat. Imports, again, slow growth, but not as bad as the year before. The key thing is the UK economy did pretty well in 2021, 7.5% growth. Now, 2022, we're not yet there, so we still have a few more weeks. But in terms of the forecast, the OECD is forecasting the UK economy will grow by 4.4%. So quite a bit down. There's a growth slowdown. And most of that growth will happen in the first half of 2022. We know things have softened a lot since. Consumer spending is still growing fairly quickly, but a significant slowdown in government spending, only 1.6% growth this year. Gross investment level, keeping level there, 5.6%. Exports picking up nicely, but imports growing even more strongly. So net trade is a little bit of a drag on growth. Okay, 2022, sustained growth, but a slowdown. Now, 2023, this is the final slide. Here we go. Recession. The OECD, the Bank of England, the Treasury and others, Office of Budget Responsibility, are all forecasting that we will have a recession in 2023. And you can see there that real GDP is forecast to contract by 0.4%. That's not a deep recession, but it could well be quite a persistent one. Consumer spending is set to fall by more than 1%. Real incomes, of course, getting squeezed. Government spending growing a little bit, 2.3%. Investment starting to slow down, only growing by 1%. So domestic demand falling by just over 2% in total. And exports, 5.5%. Imports falling. So the slowdown in consumer spending will affect import demand. So too the weak pound, which makes imports quite expensive. But the key point is that the UK economy is forecast to be in recession in 2023, if you look at the components of aggregate demand. There we go. Sometimes you get taught the theory of aggregate demand, and I just thought it'd be quite nice to spend a few minutes together looking at the actual data. Hope it made sense. Stay happy, stay positive, please. Stay focused, and see you sometime soon.